Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and these are my first impressions of Duskers. The game came out of early access on May 18th, 2016, and launched for a price of $19.99, but has a 10% launch discount. Before I begin these first impressions, however, this key was obtained from the developer for the purposes of review. That won't change my opinion of the game in the end, but you should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? So let's dive into a simple mission here. The object of the game is to basically survive. You run across a variety of ships, space stations, and trading posts that are overrun with various problems, whether it be volatile robots or horrible diseases and organic creatures. Your basic job? Get the resources from those places that you need, explore the places as much as you can, and get out before your drones get wiped out. Yes, you control drones here. Each of your drones can be controlled one at a time, and they have specific purposes based on their loadouts. Each drone has its own HP, speed, and a set of 3 equipment slots that you can put various skills in. For example, Rerez here, yes that's based off the YouTuber as you'll see with the other bots shortly, is able to power a ship via a generator command that I type in after getting him in position. This will allow me to manipulate the ship to keep my drone safe. At least as safe as I can on a foreign hostile ship. Now your drones really can't take a beating, and only really can fight against enemies in very specialized situations. And so what you have to do is minimize the risk of them facing enemies, especially early on. Dragnix here, for example, has a stealth module, meaning I can walk into a room without an enemy immediately attacking me, allowing me to scout what is behind the corner, so I can look for resources and maybe get some gas for my ship. Now I do that in conjunction with Rerez's power here, because that allows me to manipulate the doors in the ship, at least the ones that are powered. This is one of the most important mechanics of the game, because the ability of keeping certain units safe will rely on you using these doors to close off paths or to lure enemies out of rooms. You may note that I actually close a lot of doors despite me clearing a room later on, and that's because I don't want a path to some other drones in case something goes wrong. Dragnix found a possible upgrade here, and so I'm calling over good old Jontron, who has a towing ability, now that I know that the room is somewhat safe. And I'm doing that via the map view. There's 2 views in the game, one where you're overhead of the drone you are directly controlling, and the map view. The map view speeds things along, allowing me to put in commands such as navigating a bot to a certain room. For example, if I wanted to move Jontron to the room that the upgrade was, I'd put in the command navigate 3R1, meaning send drone 3 to room 1. Oh, by the way, that red box you see? Yeah, that's a hazard that is developed. Basically, that one acts sort of like a bacteria or mold, spreading slowly, and would damage my drones in question if they touched it. Even when a room is cleared out, that doesn't mean that something like that can't pop up, so you have to be aware of your surroundings of your bots at all times. Now this can lead to some frustration, as the automatic navigation doesn't take into account some of these hazards. As you see in the terminal window here, Jontron gets hurt while going back via the navigation command, despite the fact that it had a clear path to avoid the hazard. This is annoying, especially because certain hazards don't show up on the map. In fact, in general, I would like to see some kind of mark system on the map, because there's always information that you'll need to remember, and it would have been nice to have that functionality built into the game. The game is slow and methodical, and it can really punish you a lot for taking unnecessary risks. Every little bit of damage or wear and tear on your equipment does add up over time. If you're looking for something fast-paced, run far away from Duskers, because you'll crash and burn repeatedly in the game. On the other hand, it does provide a bit of a mental workout, especially when you do run across a hazard like this one here. If I wasn't in stealth, it would have blown me apart. And now that he's in that room, what do? Well, I get him out of the way. See, Duskers does well in allowing you to use your tools creatively. For example, Jontron's motion sensor. I can see certain rooms that have enemy activity or movement, and I can open and close doors to move that drone out of the room after the door opens. Now he's in that room. Now I can use an alternate path to get into the room that he was in, allowing me access, and I didn't take a scratch. And let's address the visuals right now. They can hurt the eyes at times. I get the look that the developers are going for here, and there are some graphical options to help. It's not that I don't like the overall feel of it, although I am not a fan of some of the distortion effects. But I do wonder why I couldn't change the effect on certain drones. The red color in particular gave me a lot of problems. Don't get me wrong, red's my favorite color, but here my eyes just did not like what it was seeing. It was hard to see what was going on. And I do wonder if colorblind people will have a lot of problems with this game. Now the game is punishing. It is a roguelite at heart. You're going to make slow and steady progress, you will make mistakes, and you will have to start over. Whether it be accidentally throwing out your drones into the vacuum of space, or risking opening a door only to be eaten by a virus swarm, the challenge of the game is high, and I do appreciate that. This does feel right for the genre and the audience that the game is looking for. You don't want something too easy here, and you do learn and make good progress over time. As you see here, I'm actually taking PBG back to my ship because I found him stranded. You can have up to 4 drones in a mission, and you do find them at a reasonable rate so that you can swap people out. There will be times that you get a new drone only to scrap it, mostly because the scrap is so valuable in this game. It is your currency and lifeblood, and considering that there's degradation on your items, you're gonna need every piece of scrap that you can find. And that's where things get tricky here. See, the risk and reward of trying to find more equipment and scrap is offset by the damage that can be done to your drones, and the problem can come down to luck. Again, this is a roguelike, and you should expect to fail certain missions at times because Lady Luck wasn't shining on you. You will have to abandon missions at times because there's no configuration that works that will allow you to keep exploring without exposing yourself to danger. While the first room is always open and free of enemies, there's no guarantees after that, and of course, you can get screwed by RNG. However, the degradation portion does sort of off-put me here. Using your skills on missions will make your drone break down in its certain parts, and to me, the degradation is way too fast. After 4 missions, your component can become only 80% effective, and the amount to repair that component can be up to 2-3 missions of scrap if you're lucky. For having a total of 3 bots to start, that's a bit of a problem. I think if anything, it does need a tone down here, because I do think it unfairly punishes the player a little bit too much. So as we leave this ship and go back to the main screen, you'll see the overall map of the solar system and where I can go in this procedurally generated system. You've got 2 fuels, one for the local system and one for the galaxies you'll move to. This is where you can run out of fuel and the game will be over. So you'll need every single fuel cell you can find. Other than that, you can maintain your bots, switch out components and repair them, typical of what you'd expect given the gameplay I showed you earlier. Variety in the gameplay may seem like a problem at first. On one hand, you have a very set strategy in terms of defensive type gameplay. Rarely will you be able to go on the offensive against creatures, and you'll be using the environment to take them out or get them out of the way. It has a repetitive nature because of that, although the different modules most assuredly help that out. Again, some of this should be expected, the procedural generation and the roguelike nature to the game. You want the player to have familiarity with his situation at all times, and part of that will come due to repetitive elements. But to Duskers' credit, even when the same thing was occurring, it didn't affect me. I was still engaged and enjoying the strategy element of it. However, the game does its best when shit hits the fan, especially with some random events. You can have asteroids come at the ship, for example, and add a time element to the mission. But let's take the example that happens here. All of a sudden, one of the rooms get the equivalent of a radiation leak, and the dominoes now start to fall because of it. That's where my ship is, so I can't tow the newly found ACG drone to it. And because I don't have power to that side of the ship, the 2 docking areas where my ship could be are now going to get infected with radiation because I can't close the doors. And now it's panic time. I have no way of getting to my ship or dealing with the crisis at hand. I now have to make a bunch of decisions. Either I'm forced to take damage with my drones going through the radiation, or charge ahead and hope to find another docking location, despite the fact that I've got no good options in terms of moving into a safe room other than door 10. This panic. This is what Duskers does the best in my opinion. Forcing me to react quickly and figure out what the heck to do, and take a risk despite the fact that it could blow up in my face. While there's no official time limit, the idea of that bacteria-like substance coming out of nowhere and possibly blocking me off, that's a concern. When you do overcome the obstacle, you feel like a commander who successfully pulled off an upset battle. That may not happen often for you, but when it does, it feels great. Overall, Duskers is for someone who likes slow and methodical gameplay, mixed in with a dash of chaos. It's not flashy, its UI is cumbersome, and the fact that it has a terminal on screen should give you an understanding that it's going for simplicity. But there is depth of play here, and those who are willing to wait and learn the game's mechanics in addition to wanting a challenge, Duskers will eventually pay off. And eventually, you'll feel like Captain Kirk, finding a way to make something out of nothing and escaping with your life. Only to do it again next week. Thanks for watching. Like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe if you want more content like this. In the description below, you'll find the Steam review accompanying this vid, along with social media that you can follow me on, Twitter, Google+, and Facebook groups. And if you want to support the channel, click that Patreon on the left of the screen. And remember, keep on gaming.